Good day, everyone. Welcome to the 12th annual RSEA Conference. It's our first ever virtual conference for the year 2020 due to the COVID vaccine and or lack of vaccine considerations. So we felt like this was the safest and best alternative. My name is Frank Jobert. I'm the Legislative and Governmental Affairs Director of the Retired State Employees Association, RSEA for short. And I'll be recapping some of our activities over the last year or so and what we might expect in the not too distant future. So welcome to our conference. Settle in and we'll move forward. First of all, I want to thank all of our sponsors and our speakers, most notably Lasers and the Office of Group Benefits. They're, of course, our partners with RSEA, and we basically could not operate without them, especially Lasers. We use their resources and a lot of their institutional data that they have on retirees and future retirees, and we would be dead in the water without them. So let me first of all recognize Lasers, and then of course OGB, which is the other big partner that we have with us. Used to be Dean Mobley. Now Dean Mobley is no longer the customer service representative and field person that we were most familiar with. We now have on board Wendy Landry. And of course, you all may have heard that Tommy Teague, the executive director, the CEO, chief executive officer of OGB, recently stepped down and he retired again. And we now have a new gentleman who was just appointed in the last day or so by the name of Colonel David Crouvillon. And I'm not too familiar with Mr. Crouvillon. Don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but it was reported in the press just yesterday that he has been appointed the new CEO of OGB. I'd also at this time like to recognize our president of RSEA, Gwen Thompson, our first vice president, Dave Thomas, second vice president, James LeBlanc, our treasurer, who is Alan Reynolds, is now deceased. He passed away in the last month or so. And Alan was a very pivotal part of our organization, having been a civil service director for many years. When he retired, he came over to RSEA as a board member, eventually became the executive director of RSEA. Then when he stepped down from that position, he held on to the treasurer position, which he had up until his death. Our new treasurer is going to be Shannon Tomplay for the year 2021. So everyone, if they have a chance, please keep Alan Reynolds and his family in their thoughts and prayers. Other person I want to recognize at this time is our immediate past president from the Shreveport-Bossier area, and we Miss Benita Hearn. She's the immediate past president and now ascends to the role of the foundation president, because RSEA has a foundation, and I'm not sure if anybody else has covered it in their remarks earlier, but I'll just mention that we have started an RSEA scholarship fund, and more information will be coming out on that topic in the new year. So I also like to recognize at this time our staff. Jimmy Anthony is the executive director of RSEA. Susan Jandal is our office manager, and Ms. Linda Price is our membership and communications coordinator for RSEA. As I said, I represent RSEA as your legislative and governmental affairs director. I've been with RSEA now approximately 10 years, having started as executive director back in 2010, and I gave up that position in 2015 to become the legislative affairs person. So let me just recap for you the things that we feel about RSEA and our role in the lives of state employees who are our future retirees, and of course the retirees themselves. The mission of RSEA is to preserve and enhance our retiree and healthcare benefits. Two things that are very big benefits that a lot of people come to work for the state for, if nothing else, just to get those benefits. The salaries never were too spectacular, but the retirements under the defined benefit designation, as well as the healthcare benefits offered by the Office of Group Benefits, have always been big perks that a lot of people are probably envious of. But that's our main goal, quite frankly, is to try to enhance those benefits, but it's been some tough times lately in state government and elsewhere. especially with the COVID situation. Our job now I find myself more or less in the realm of protecting or defending that which we already have from those who might want to take it away. And that is a little odd, but there's always some new person, some new legislator, someone with a new idea that thinks there's a better way to do it. And consequently, we always find ourselves playing defense. I always like to remind any legislator who is trying to undermine the defined benefit retirement plan as we currently know it, that Social Security benefits, which are the safety nets for most other workers in the private workforce and elsewhere, that is their form of the defined benefit plan, which, as everyone knows, state employees and teachers and other government employees in Louisiana do not participate in the Social Security program. Hence, our retirement is solely dependent on the DB model that LASERS offers, which is the Louisiana State Employee Retirement System, along with the other three state systems, ELSERS, which is Louisiana School Employees, TRSL, Teachers Retirement System of Louisiana, and Louisiana State Police Retirement System. Those are your four state systems. So we work on behalf of our retirees, both current and future retirees. Our motto is, and one of our themes at RSEA is, we're working today for your tomorrow. We're trying to protect those benefits that are there throughout your 25, 30, 35-year work career, so that by the time you retire, you'll be able to retire with some dignity and not retire at poverty wages, and you won't have to necessarily go out and find another job. You'll be able to sustain yourself and your family in your golden years with the benefits that are offered by LASERS and, of course, the health care that's provided by OGB. Our retiree interests and state employee interests are aligned. I always like to say this, that it's a situation that it's we, it's not us versus them. Whenever I go to the table in the legislature, I always try to remind myself and everyone else that when I speak, I'm speaking for both groups, retirees and our state employees / future retirees. Because we work together very closely, because most of those benefits that I spoke of earlier are there during one's work career with the expectation that those same benefits will be there when they retire. And that's why I feel like the two groups, the state employees, both active, and the state retirees, should work in conjunction with one another. And one should not really get jealous of the other group or vice versa, because it's a hand-in-glove situation. We're partners with one another. And the more state employees we have as a part of our association, the louder our voice and the more effective we can be when we go over to the Capitol and testify. There is strength in numbers, and we do need more active employees. So those of you who might have an occasion to see this video, if you think about joining RSEA, it's only $18 a year, very nominal amount of money. We accept credit cards and I believe PayPal, and of course retirees can do payroll deduction, and we do accept regular US dollars. If you want to write us a check, we'll be happy to accept your $18. We have made some accomplishments over the year. I'll cover some of those things to some extent here in the next few minutes. If you remember back in the Bobby Jindal administration, there was an effort afoot to privatize OGB. As it turned out, while it wasn't completely privatized, they did farm out the third-party administration of the plan to the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana organization. They do administer the benefits, but at the end of the day, the state of Louisiana and OGB underwrite those benefits, and they provide the benefits that basically Blue Cross just pays the claims on. So we did exactly do what we wanted to do by preserving that program as an in-house program, self-funded program, if you will. And OGB continues to be on top of that and run the program with Blue Cross Blue Shield as more or less a caretaker side by side with us to make the payments of the claims. We also fought a few years ago, there was a proposal on the table to repeal the exemption that we enjoy as retirees for no payment of income tax on our state retiree benefits. A lot of people may not even be aware of that, but it is a great benefit. We fought to preserve that. We went to the Capitol, we wrote letters, we engaged the committee members, who at that time was a task force studying the idea, and we were able to preserve that benefit going forward, and that's still there today, but we always are vigilant about something like this resurfacing at some point. So I just want to remind you, if you hear any talk about that, that's something you want to get engaged with. You want to fight it. You might not be getting the exemption as a state worker, but you will be entitled to and receive that benefit upon your retirement, and it's something you should and could be looking forward to at some point in your future. We also fought and received retiree COLAs in 2014 and 2016. If you remember, in the year 2015, Governor Jindal did veto a COLA, but we came back in 2016 and were able to get it reinstated. So we did get two COLAs. 14 and 16 were our last two. There were 1.5% COLAs, and therefore eligible retirees of LASEs. We're still working on something that you probably are very much aware of. It's called the Windfall Elimination Provision, the WEP, and the GPO, the Government Pension Offset, both known as Social Security offsets. So we are constantly fighting against that. There's a lot of folks who have worked in the private sector prior to coming to the state, or in some cases go to work in the private sector after leaving the state. And it turns out that if they do find themselves entitled to a Social Security benefit side by side with their LASES benefit, their pension, if you will, there is an offset of almost 2/3 of that money from the federal government. And it does actually hurt our members quite a bit, especially the GPO, which is a widower's benefit or a survivor's benefit based on their spouse's work career, whereas the WEP is your own money that's based on your work career and your earnings. There are a couple of measures, I should say at least three, that we're tracking in the United States Congress dealing with the WEP and the GPO. HR 141, this is a pretty big bill. It's got 259 co-sponsors, if you can believe that. I received an email yesterday from the Social Security Fairness Coalition. They're keeping track of that on a daily basis. Those 259 co-sponsors leave us just 31 votes short, 31 sponsors short of the 290 that would be required to bring this to a vote on the floor of the United States House of Representatives. So with just 31 more people, and I will point out that everyone in Louisiana, all of our congressional delegation has already signed on to this measure. So we're talking about finding just 31 more representatives, whether they be Republican or Democrat, it's immaterial, to bring this up to 290 co-sponsors, which would then put us at the 290 required to force a vote on the House floor. And that measure deals with total repeal of the WEP and the GPO. It would be a great thing if it could get passed. I had a call last week with another coalition that we're a part of, along with the Texas Retired Teachers Association and some other associations from around the country. There are two other measures, HR 3934 by Representative Kevin Brady, who's a Republican out of Texas, and HR 4540 by Representative Richard Neal, who's a Democrat out of Massachusetts. Both of these are senior members of the House Ways and Means Committee. Mr. Neal, of course, is the chairman, and Kevin Brady is the ranking member. Both of those measures, according to the conference call I had last week, were kind of stalled in committee. They have not forgotten about us. Like everything else at this point in time, it seems like COVID has put everything on the back burner or off to the side while they fight that battle. But while we won't have any movement on the legislation in all likelihood prior to the election, the expectation is from the members who participated in the conference call last week is that both of those measures could be brought up after the election on November 3rd, and there would be some likelihood of some movement on that. I regret to report that the bills only include the WEP at this time, and it's not a total repeal, it's a partial repeal. It does not include the GPO. All the coalition members, of course, would like to see the GPO repealed or at least partially repealed as well. But they felt like, and I'm in agreement with them, that if we get some movement on this legislation, get something on the books to at least recognize that there is a problem that needs to be addressed. If we get the WEP first, then we can always come back and hopefully add the GPO at a later date because it's just as sorely needed as the WEP itself. And closer to home last year, in 2020, should say the last session, not last year. It seems like it was a year ago, but it was just this past spring. There was a measure passed by Senator Beth Mizell, SCR 34, Senate Concurrent Resolution 34, and another measure by Representative Mike Johnson, HCR, which would be a House Concurrent Resolution number 9. Both of those measures basically memorialize or urge and request that the Congress of the United States repeal both the weapon GPO. Both of those resolutions sailed through both chambers of the Louisiana House and the Louisiana Senate, and went on to be sent to the people in Congress, letting them know that the Louisiana team is behind repeal, partial or otherwise, of both the weapon GPO. So those passed with flying colors. 2 more measures that are of great interest to retirees are H.R. 21 by Representative Lance Harris and Senate Resolution SR 15 by Senator Ed Price. Both of these are COLA resolutions, and both measures request that the state retirement systems report back to the legislature by December 31st alternative measures of funding COLAs for retirees in the ensuing years. It remains to be seen if, in fact, we will get a COLA in 2021. I did attend the LASES board meeting about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and the information I received at that time was that based on the actuarial rate of return and the funding status of LASES, there is not sufficient money in the experience account to fund a COLA in 2021. But I'm optimistic that with these 2 measures that passed, perhaps some alternative funding measures will come to the table in December and beyond, and perhaps find a new way of funding COLAs down the road. But at this point, it looks like in 2021, you won't see one via the experience account, where the monies normally go from what they classify as excess investment earnings. So we just have to wait and see on that. But at this point, I'm waiting anxiously to see what these reports say from the systems on how we might find an alternative method to provide a COLA. Because it's been since 2016. It's already 4 years. And if we don't get one in 2021, that'll be 5 years. Meanwhile, inflation continues to rear its ugly head. And some would suggest that inflation for senior citizens is not completely the same as the general rate of inflation, which is only like 1.3, 1.4%. But there's other cost factors that go into the basket of goods and services that retirees use that might actually result in a higher inflation rate for us. Hence, the need for a COLA becomes even more paramount. Another measure that we did tackle last year, and I might mention that I'm on the Office of Group Benefits Policy and Planning Board. I was elected to that position July 1st, 2016. My term runs out June 30th of the year 2022. But there was a measure last session, again, earlier this year, House Bill 325 by Representative Eccles. I believe he's up in the Washita Parish, Monroe area, that would have been mandating mandatory Medicare Advantage plan coverage for any Medicare retirees. While we have nothing against Medicare Advantage plans, as you know, OGB offers a PPO plan and also an HMO plan under the Magnolia umbrella. And those plans allow for what I consider to be more freedom of choice and selection of your healthcare providers. That's both doctors, hospitals, and other service providers in the medical field. And it also allows for out-of-state medical coverage, so that if you're a retiree living out of state, you can avail yourself of the PPO or the HMO plan and also maintain coverage out of state, whereas the Medicare Advantage model, as I appreciate it, would not provide that same luxury. So we oppose that. The measure, as it turns out, did not even get a hearing in the Appropriations Committee. It was basically dead on arrival because we did put up a lot of resistance to this plan from the very start. That's not to say it couldn't come up again next year in some form or fashion. So just be aware that those types of things are floating around, and we would try to work on your behalf to continue to protect you, protect your medical coverage, whatever plan you have selected at this time. So we also fought bills and will continue to fight any legislation that mandates a state constitutional convention. As you know, our retirement benefits are protected. I believe it's Article 10, Section 29 of the Louisiana Constitution. We're right in there with the bondholders of the state. Bondholders get paid first, the retirees get paid second, and our checks are guaranteed. It's almost a contractual relationship, if you will. So anytime somebody talks about a constitutional convention, which would include retirement in the call, we would naturally oppose that, and we would keep you aware of any movement in that area, and we would, of course, ask you to reach out to your legislator and ask that they fight against any such measure that might be going through either the House or the Senate. We have fought, as I mentioned earlier, and we'll continue to mention probably several times throughout the presentation, we are continually fighting to preserve the defined benefit retirement plan model as we know it. We have always fought the DC, or defined contribution model, and we've also fought the cash balance model, which we actually went to court. I believe it was in the year 2012, 2013. The legislature had passed an act, what they called a cash balance plan, which is somewhat of a DC DB hybrid, perhaps you could call it. And we took it to court, and we were able to get a Supreme Court ruling that basically shot down that measure, and it hasn't returned since. So our goal would be to keep it as it is. The DB model has been tweaked over the years. They've raised the retirement age. We've actually also increased the employee contribution, and did some enhancements to make the DB plan more solid and more sustainable. So if we can do what we can to protect the DB plan, that's our constant goal. Not for ourselves, because we already have that, but it's for the people coming after us, as I said earlier. That's for our future retirees who are current state employees. RSEA is also participating with a group of profit and nonprofit organizations, most notably AARP, side by side with the other groups that I mentioned a moment ago, and RSEA. We call it the Live at Home Coalition. Live at home is basically referring to folks who want to live at home rather than living in a nursing home when they're no longer able to take care of themselves. There's been a survey taken by AARP that basically said most, I believe it's like 80% of retired individuals would prefer to age at their own homes under their own family's care rather than be put into a nursing home. And while we do recognize that nursing homes have a role and we're not against them, we just feel like people ought to have more of a choice in how they go through their golden years rather than being forced to go to a nursing home because there's no funding available for stay-at-home care. We prefer that model. It allows us to take care of more people at a lower cost, and it allows them to maintain a residence at their home with their family and not be institutionalized, for lack of a better word. And most seniors, it has been decided and determined from these surveys that have taken that approach. And while most other states are actually shifting towards spending more for in-home care and community-based care, Louisiana has done just the opposite. For example, I'll give you some numbers here that were sent to me by AARP. In 2013, 30% of our long-term care dollars for seniors on home and community-based care was spent. That number is, as of 2020, has dropped down to 20%, while the national average is 45%. So here's Louisiana back in 2013, 30% of our money is going to that approach. Now it's down to 20, and the rest of the world's moving in the opposite direction. They're up to 45%. So we feel like, again, while the nursing homes may have a role in the aging process, and people may eventually all need to go in a nursing home, as long as it's a situation where people can be viable and sustainable, working with their family members and healthcare providers who would come to them to provide services, it seems like to me it's a more cost-effective alternative. It's better for the individuals, it's better for the state, and it's better for everyone. So if you want more information about the Live at Home Coalition, feel free to get in touch with us at RSEA. You can also reach out to AARP. I work with a gentleman there by the name of Andrew Mall and Mr. Nice Botcher. And of course, one of our RSEA members, Bobby Savoy, is the president of AARP, statewide president. And any one of us can give you some more information on the Live at Home Coalition and try to help us to get those dollars redirected back to in-home and community-based services rather than these institutional or nursing home services. I wanted to mention that to you in passing. Let me give you a brief OGB update. Again, since I'm a member of the board, I'm privy to some information that you may not have heard about yet that I'll share with you. Of course, open enrollment is going on right now and will be going on until approximately November 15th. It started on October 1st. The first thing I want to mention, and it was just recently in the last week or two that this became real news to a lot of our members and to others. There was a pharmacy benefits manager contract that went out to bid, and CVS Caremark was the successful bidder, but there were some challenges to it which are still ongoing. And as it all ended up shaking out, the current provider, MedImpact, who we've been with for the last 3 years at least that I'm aware of, under the contract that we currently operate under, they're going to be given a new 1-year extension via an emergency contract effective January 1st, 2021, in which case we'll have the same provider. You'll probably be able to use your same pharmacy benefits card that you're currently using. And again, I'm assuming all of this based on no court or legal challenges to our decision to move forward with MedImpact. The thing that a lot of people were hearing when the CVS Caremark contract was being considered by the Joint Legislative Committee on the Budget was that they would no longer have freedom of choice. They wouldn't be able to use their independent pharmacists. This was not true. The CVS Caremark contract did not require you to use a CVS pharmacy only. Obviously, it wouldn't be practical because a lot of our folks live in rural areas and there may not even be a CVS pharmacy anywhere around them. So either way you shake it out, we were not going to do that. There was another misconception that the CVS Caremark contract was going to require mail order only. That was not true as well. The other thing which you just mentioned is that you were going to have to use CVS only in selecting your pharmacy and you wouldn't be able to use your independent pharmacist. Not true. And of course, the other thing was they weren't even going to have to follow Louisiana law. Well, that turned out to be untrue. I saw the contract. It's 180 pages long. And there's a specific paragraph in there that the contractor must follow all Louisiana laws that pertain to pharmacy benefits management and other type things that will be incorporated into the contract with the pharmacy benefits manager provider. So the bottom line is it will be MedImpact unless some legal challenge or other episode turns us in a different direction. The only bad news I have to offer is that the OGB premiums will be going up 5.5% effective January 1st, 2021. I say that, but I'm also hanging my hat on something else. The MedImpact contract is supposed to result in $122 million savings to the Office of Group Benefits in the year 2021. If that happens, I'm asking and I'm going to advocate for that $122 million savings, should it materialize, be used to offset any future premium increases in the year 2022 and beyond. So I'm really optimistic that with the current contract that's being put forth by MedImpact and OGB effective 1/1/21, that we may very well be able to see this $122 million savings throughout the year 2021, in which case our need to raise premiums in 2022 may be minimized to some extent. As I said, I did attend the Lasers board meeting during the month of September. They issued their Lasers annual valuation report as of the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, 2020. And as I mentioned, no COLA in 2021 is indicated at this point through the experience account. The drop rate that is proposed, and Lasers may have covered this in their presentation, so if it's duplicated, I apologize. But their rate for drop interest is going to be 3.44%, subject to PERS approval. PERS is the Public Retirement Systems Actuarial Committee. They take the recommendation of the LASES actuary along with the recommendations of all the other systems who report on an annual basis to PERS. And then once that number is verified by PERS, then we can publicly say and pronounce that in fact that will be the interest rate that will be paid on drop accounts under the old drop plan that would cover the time frame July 1st, 19 through June 30th, 2020. Well, that's about all I have to cover today. I'm going to just close by saying that another one of our board members, it's been a bad year in 2020, former senator and chairman of the Senate Retirement Committee, Butch Gotro, passed away 3 or 4 months ago. Butch is deceased now and will be inducted into our Hall of Fame. You don't have to be deceased to get into the Hall of Fame. It just seems like it always works out that way, unfortunately. But RSEA is inducting him into the Hall of Fame this year. But Butch always told me a story when he was a legislator. And I want to close with this, that to prove the point about strength in numbers, he told me that as a sitting senator in the Louisiana legislature, and he was in the legislature, both House and Senate, for 16 years, and he was a state retiree, by the way. He was one of the older legislators who were able to join LASES back in the day. He told me that he always paid attention to his phone calls and his emails and other communication from constituents and others. And when he got 1 or 2 phone calls or emails, sure, he would answer them and he would return the calls and respond to the email accordingly. But he said when he got 30, 40, 50, 100, 150 calls, emails, faxes, people dropping by his office, etc., advocating for a particular measure or opposing another measure, he would always say that would definitely get his attention. And that's my point. RSEA is your voice at the Capitol. It's one thing for Frank to go over there and put in a red card or a green card or go to the table and speak about a particular measure, either favorably or unfavorably. But they're not just going to listen to me. As Butch's example said, when you get hundreds of phone calls and emails and faxes on a particular measure and you let the legislators know your position on those things, that will get not only the legislators' attention, it will get the whole legislature's attention. So to strengthen numbers, I encourage you to continue your membership in RSEA. If you know others, please try to bring a friend or coworker into the fold with us. I would encourage the active employees to join with us. It's $18 a year. It's the same price for actives or retirees. And it's probably a good value for your money. Probably only have a couple of hundred actives out of almost 10,000 members. At one point during the Jindal administration, when things were really flying, we had close to 1,000 active members. We'd like to get back to that number again. We'd like to continue to be able to help you, to help us, to help ourselves. So if you could, please consider joining RSEA. It would be a big plus for you and for everyone else. I want to thank you for listening to this video and for attending the RSEA conference, albeit in a virtual fashion. I want to thank all the members for their membership, and once again, close by thanking our sponsors and exhibitors and other speakers who participated in our 2020 virtual conference. Thank you and have a good day.